Hey everyone. So thank you very much for joining us for the first weekly hangout with founders from this week's, or rather this program's uh, Open Web Fellowship or Foundry. Yeah, I'm really excited to have a whole bunch of amazing founders with us today. We'll be hearing from DChat, MyMail, Traxer, and Akord, which are all incredible projects. So this is really, really cool. The basic format is just like last week for those that were here. We'll be hearing from the founders for about 4 to 5 minutes each, telling us what they're building, the things they're thinking about, and then afterwards we have a typical kind of community discussion session afterwards, just in the area out there in the coffee zone, I guess you call it. Yeah. So first of all, David, can you join us on stage and tell us a little bit about DChat? All right. Hey, David. Perfect. We can see.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, my app name is DChat, and basically it is a decentralized, censorship-resistant Twitter clone. And the impetus for the idea was basically so lately we've seen a lot of censorship, account suspensions in the centralized social networks. They were even free to ban the president of the United States. So when I saw that, to me, that was very concerning. I think that everyone values freedom of speech, and there shouldn't be a single authority determining what you can and cannot say, and things of that nature. So this is going to be a quick demo. The app is nowhere near complete, but basically, I'm going to log in using the classic Arweave wallet. And there's no feeds currently because the following system is not yet ready, but text input is ready. So I added the ability to do some formatting just to emphasize wherever you want to emphasize. And then if I submit, you get warned of the transaction costs. And then if I go to my profile, you can see the current message that I just submitted plus the prior messages in descending order. And then this section is just, the about me screen, I guess you could say. And you have the ability to create avatars or change avatars, that sort of thing. Yeah, so for now, that's it. But, as you can see from here, the static content, there's a ton of stuff that is relevant that I plan to build out eventually. So, in terms of tokenomics and monetization, I basically have two sort of differing avenues that I've been thinking about. And I was hoping that during the discussion period, you guys could provide some feedback for me for those ideas or even completely different ideas that you may have. So the first thing that I realized is that for a decentralized, censorship-resistant application, there's really no place for advertising, right? I'm not going to hoard users' data, and nobody likes ads anyway. On the other side, having some sort of subscription or payment model, as far as I've seen, hasn't worked in social networks. So I'm not going to do any of those things either. So one of the ideas that I had was if people just want to view content and browse around, they don't have to do anything. But if they want to create an account and create content and and interact and stuff like that, then what I was thinking is that they would stake some money, some nominal amount of tokens, $5 to $10 worth, and then they would be allowed to participate the network. These tokens would be in the Solana network, and smart contracts would be used to immediately move those funds into a yield bearing pool or farm. And then that yield that is generated would be used in part to maintain the application, and then also to pay content creators on a weighted basis based upon how much attention and likes and all that stuff that they get. So that's at a high level, one of the core tokenomics ideas that I have. The other one is something that Sam told me about that I think is pretty similar and also definitely an option, which is to create a community token and have staking as well, right? Similar $5-10 to participate. And then on the emission schedule of the token, let's say it's once a month or every 3 months or whatever, a smart contract would determine some sort of yield generation where, again, on a weighted basis, the people that are creating content and getting the most attention would get the highest number of tokens. So yeah, those are my two ideas. And this, I know was a super quick demo, but I think we've all seen Twitter or used it before. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Very, very cool. I mean, this is yeah, I guess we've all seen Twitter before, but it's a whole different thing to see properly decentralized Twitter actually working in practice. In terms of tokenomics, yeah, I think it's interesting because you can essentially have the same effect as you're describing if you just have a profit sharing community and then you have everyone stake $5 to $10 worth of tokens in order to take part. That adds to the scarcity of the token associated with the system. And then if you want, I guess you can have some kind of system where you can allocate those tokens against different content. So you can have like a potentially even liquid NFTs or something happening. But anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff we should talk about after. And I think Joe from Aftermarket is here too. So it'd be cool to speak to him about this, because I think there's some idea about how you can basically kind of stake any profit sharing token against either your subscription or actually just against someone else's content and say, this is a cool piece of content. I'm going to give you, my profit from my Arweave tokens for a week for this content or something like that. It's kind of weird, but like could be fun. Anyway, lots to discuss. Thank you so much for sharing. So up next, let me just check the running list. Yeah, is Dan with My Mail. Dan. Thanks, David. Hey, Dan.
I'm here to talk about My Mail, working title.
We can see.
Great. So I'm going to move quickly because I want to cover this. But this is really I want to talk about the vision behind email on the PermaWeb. And in order to do that, I need to start at the beginning. So in the beginning was the internet. We'll move quickly through this. And the foundational protocol suite of the internet was TCP/IP. And it described a network of nodes with addresses that could be used to route information between them in a decentralized way. And in the beginning, most of the nodes on this network were machines, and the machines could send messages back and forth. But the real value of a communication network is users, people being able to send messages back and forth. And back in the 80s, when this was created, computers were a lot more scarce than they are now. And so it was common for users to share share access to a computer. So the SMTP protocol was invented, Simple Mail Transport Protocol. And this has allowed users to route messages between one another. And so the addressing system for users that was come up with was the email address. And it was composed of two parts. There was on the right side of the @ symbol was a domain part, and that address was the node to where the message should be delivered. And then on the left side of the @ symbol was the local part, which indicated which user's inbox the mail should be delivered to. And if you're paying attention, you might say, Dan, I use email all the time, and I've never seen an email address that looks like that. And that's because DNS, the domain name service, was yet to be invented. And so with DNS, we gained the ability to sort of replace these node addresses, these 32-bit addresses, with human-readable domain names. And thus, we have the sort of canonical email address that we have today. So email was a game changer. It digitized physical letter writing. You no longer had to put a pen to paper or type out a thing or put it in an envelope or fax it or whatever else it was. It was just frictionless and easy. And it was instantaneous anywhere on the network, well, virtually instantaneous. And it was free if you had access to a computer and the internet. So a note about network effects. Now, email has a very powerful network effect. If I'm the only person in the world with an email, like, it's pretty worthless, right? It has really no value. I can email myself. I could just do that with a text editor. If two people have email addresses and they can send messages back and forth, that's potentially interesting, especially if I know the other person. If everyone in an organization has an email, that can be a level up for the organization. That can increase efficiency across the organization dramatically, especially if they're distributed, and be a competitive advantage in the marketplace. On a more personal level, if everyone I know has email and I don't have one, like, I'm going to work really hard to get an email address, because it means I can communicate asynchronously with everyone I know and they can communicate with me. If everyone on the planet has an email address, then email is the dominant form of communication, really, of asynchronous communication. And if I don't have an email and everyone and the planet expects me to have one, then I don't get to participate in many of the services that we enjoy. Like, try getting like DoorDash or Uber or I don't know, a mobile phone plan without an email address. Even like sometimes even a bank account you can't register for without an email address. So email is essential. And just the power of this network effect, the more people that participate in the network, the more valuable it becomes, is why email is still here 40 years later. So a quick history of email clients. In the beginning, it was servers. You would log in, you would check a directory, and you would see new files there, and those are your emails. Not long after that, they came up with these sort of terminal clients. If you were a student in the 90s, you probably used Pine. This is one that I remember, which would essentially log into the server and let you view the messages that were there. So it was very server-centric. As the personal computer revolution sort of replaced this server-centric model, you started to have consumer operating systems, GUI apps. Some of you may remember Outlook Express. And it's interesting here that at this moment in time, email started taking a step towards empowering users and decentralizing email. So in these clients, you could actually download your message from the server and store it in an inbox format. And then if you wanted to change email clients, you could like export your inbox and import it into another one. And so this actually empowered users at this period. But then the dot-com bubble, Web 2 happened, everything was online. The internet, like the web, became the dominant way that people interacted with the network and with computers. And so email went online. And this was the world that we lived in. And if you still have a Hotmail today, this is when a lot of people got their first email address. And if you still have this today, this is probably your spam account. You probably use this to sign up for things that are going to spam you. And then smartphones came along, and you better believe that email was a launch title for the smartphone, which I'm kind of indicating here began with Apple's iPhone. But it's true. Email survived 4 paradigm shifts in the dominant commuting platform because of the incredible power of its network. So email is not perfect, though. The trusting servers is built into the SMTP protocol way back from the beginning. And emails are just sort of shipped around in plain text. So if someone encounters your email on a server, they can just read it. And with webmail, with the centralization of mail on the web, it's become true that the company that services your email also owns your identity. And then also email is censorable. So like, because it depends on DNS, a state actor can block access to DNS servers. But perhaps more concerningly, recently online, I've seen people on my Twitter who are saying like they're locked out of their Gmail account. And what's happened is a machine learning algorithm has flagged their account as questionable, and they're locked out. And instantaneously overnight, they've lost 10 to 15 years of email history. They can no longer access their inboxes, and they have no recourse by which to sort of get support from Google, because Google doesn't offer support for its free product. So this is very, very concerning. So the future is bright on the PermaWeb with email. And with Weave Mail in particular, which is like the native email format on Arweave, it's end-to-end encrypted, which means it's secure and private. And even though it exists in a public ledger that's accessible by anyone, it's encrypted so that only you and the recipient can view the contents of those messages. And because the data is associated with your Arweave wallet, you own that data permanently. And there's no lock-in. Like, you don't have to stick with Central, like with Hotmail or Gmail or Outlook. You're kind of stuck with them. It's really hard to move off. Not so on the PermaWeb. And then Weave mails in particular don't rely on DNS, and they're censorship resistant. You can send them without any of those systems, just natively on Arweave. And then, of course, the real benefit of the PermaWeb is that web apps on the PermaWeb are permanent. If you have a user experience that you like for messaging and email, you get to keep it forever without fear of losing it. So enter my mail. And this is sort of where we pivot to what our approach here. And there's a tendency in the crypto space to sort of fix all the problems that we see in the world around us, and tackle them one by one, and just start with a blank slate and imagine the world as it could be. And I think this is a fantastically powerful way to view the world, and it's why I'm in the crypto space. But I think with email, we do ourselves a little bit of a disservice if we take that approach. If the goal is to get people on Arweave and to get people on this better communication platform, we don't get there by trying to take on what's arguably one of the most successful communication networks of all time, head to head, and try to replace it from scratch. So the way we do it is we embrace and we extend email and bring it to the PermaWeb. We have a great story to tell. Mail is just better on the PermaWeb. So project goals. We really want to take this killer app that's been around since the beginning of the internet and extend it onto the PermaWeb. Initially, to get our community, like Arweavers, excited about it and get the experience dialed in, make sure there's no loading bars all over the place, make sure that it's good enough for the public, and then ultimately give the rest of the world a reason to create an Arweave wallet and start experiencing the PermaWeb. Email can be that first step that they take, that familiar step. They know what they're stepping into, and they can have a great experience. And then ultimately, once they're here, there's all these other great PermaWeb apps like Arweave and Koi and Verdo, and that we've heard about as part of the Open Web Foundry. And email can be a vector for those. But what does it look like? Let's look at some wireframes. Like, this is very early stuff, but it should communicate what I'm thinking. So if you've used HeyMail, this is inspired by it. But you can see here, this is a my mail client that deployed as a PermaWeb app. And you can see that there's an inbox with recent messages, very familiar if you've used email before. You can compose emails. This is hypothetically Sam's email inbox, and you can see that he has a bunch of new messages. This one from Dan, from me, you can see that I have a wallet address on Arweave, and I've taken the time to specify an avatar image. But there's this other interesting message here that's tagged with a little email icon. And it says, "See who liked your page." It's the typical churn that Facebook churns out. And you can see that it's actually, this message has come from SMTP. It's come from email. And it's being stored on a bridge that will store it for 90 days. So say I go in and I click on this account, like DoorDash. This brings up an account view, or contact view. I can see all of my interactions with DoorDash. I can see that they're an email account, and they have this email, and I'm not pinning their emails, and you can see there's sort of the type of churn that I get from DoorDash and the expiring messages. So that's the basic way to integrate email with the PermaWeb. But say I go and look at an Arweave native contact. So here's Dan McDonald. He's got a wallet address, and he's got two different emails, legacy emails that he's associated with his contact. And you can see here that I'm pinning these emails permanently. And what that means is, if, for here, Dan forwarded a message from Gmail saying, "Hey, Sam, here's the notes from the last meeting." While it is tagged as an email, it's not expiring, because this email has been pulled off the bridge. It's encrypted, and it's been persisted to the PermaWeb, where it's being stored forever. So that's it. That's my mail. It's an email client on the PermaWeb that blends email and Weave mail. And in doing so, it taps into the incredible network effects of email to create a pathway for users to migrate off centralized email, take control of their data, own it permanently, and experience mail on the PermaWeb.
Wow, this is just incredible. Okay. The project itself, I'm super excited for, but just putting that aside for a second, the analysis of protocol history there was awesome. It's exactly right. The way that email ended up being the killer app for what was essentially TCP/IP at the time, just TCP/IP, the raw internet, long before the web came along, and then how interestingly the network effects were strong enough that it persisted all the way through to today, even though actually, frankly, SMTP is not a great. There's a lot of problems with the basic protocol there. Like I remember you used to be able to just log on to a random server, SMTP server, and just send mail from whoever you decided you wanted to be that day. And the protocol was perfectly fine with that. Yeah, there are a ton of issues with the base protocol, and yet you're right, it has persisted because it just, sorry, that's unhelpful. Yeah, it's persisted because of the network effects. And now seeing it as a sort of on-ramp to a ownerless and permissionless mail network on top of the PermaWeb is super cool. I think there's interesting questions around the trust model for the bridges themselves, but we should get into that afterwards because it's quite complicated. But I have some ideas on stuff we can do. But thank you so much for sharing. That's just like a super cool history of the email protocol and everything associated with it. Thank you. All right, so next up, I think we have Chris from Traxa. Hey, Chris.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Sure.
So take it away.
All right. Can you see my screen okay?
We can indeed.
Excellent. Once again, my name is Chris. I am with Traxa. We are a platform to help track and secure the global intermodal shipping container industry. What is a intermodal shipping container? This is the wiki definition for those of you that may not necessarily know what it is, but it's basically what drives our global economy. And basically all goods, vast majority of goods are, especially on a bulk basis, are manufactured in other countries and shipped in the US, shipped into Europe, shipped out of Europe, shipped out of the US, shipped into China, out of China. It's how our whole global economy works. Each container contains a unique container ID. So you would think similar, if those of you are familiar with shipping carriers such as DHL, FedEx, UPS, they all have a unique tracking ID to them. The challenge is the unique tracking ID on these global shipping containers that are sent all over the world do not have a global database. It is literally isolated inside of each carrier that is currently holding on to said container. It's a challenge for the industry to cross-talk and cross-communicate with each other to find their goods, whether or not they're on a vessel, so a ship, if the actual shipping container's on a ship, if the container's on a truck or on rail. The only way to typically track each of those goods is to know which carrier is currently moving it, and quite literally pick up the old school telephone, call someone, read off the container ID, and ask them where it is. It's pretty archaic. It would be like you need to track something from DHL. You go to DHL.com, but there's no way to enter in that tracking information at all. You have to actually find what subsidiary of DHL is actually moving your container around. And this is where Traxa comes into play. What we have, and this is for those of you that would like to take a little bit closer look at the project, what I have on my screen, instead of a traditional PowerPoint presentation, I'm actually presenting our Notion site. I know it's not pretty, but it's a great way for our community to be able to collaborate on trying to build this platform. The inspiration for this platform it was actually from my company. My company is perpetuating the problem. We currently, so the name of our company is called Nataris. There's a little background on the Traxa.io page. But basically, what we are doing currently for each of these individual companies that move the shipping containers is we're providing them with the technology to take any camera and capture the shipping container IDs along with the GPS geolocation data and push that into their proprietary database. None of these carriers want us to share any of that information publicly. So you ask, so what is the Traxa project? How is it going to be able to do this publicly? Well, our customers in the private sector, in each of the private sector, are actively using our app to capture the containers within their own facilities. There's a key independent individual that actually moves each of these containers that's critical to the logistics and supply chain of moving intermodal shipping containers, and that's the trucker. The idea is for Traxa is to enable the truckers that are oftentimes independent contractors themselves to capture these intermodal shipping containers and store them onto a global distributed ledger as NFTs. And to reward those community participating members to take those pictures, store the NFTs with the geolocation data onto the blockchain. We want to try to take it a step further, and that's why we're so excited about Arweave, of enabling the authors of those shipping containers with their unique IDs and the geolocation of each of those shipping containers to be rewarded with a financial compensation from a form of profit sharing tokens in a profit sharing community where everyone's rewarded for submitting these NFTs and data to the web. At the end of the day, the site is www.traxa.io. We have a number of primary links on here, including our Get Involved page to encourage involvement, down to we have our Google Drive information of different architectures we're talking about. We do weekly events. We have just set up a Google Calendar of our weekly events. We have a Thursday U.S. Eastern Time Zone evening, just kind of open office hours that we talk with community people in our Discord channel. And every morning at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time Zone, we have a community call. We just had our community call at 11. Each of the events that we've had so far, our first event was actually on June 14th. We do one once a week. Our next one is next Friday, August 6th, and all that information is on the Traxa.io website. That is pretty much the very short, brief, simplistic overview of what Traxa is. We are trying to set it up as a DAO. The main asks that we're looking for right now and participating in the Arweave Open Web Foundry are two goals that we have identified. And we identified it actually in our meeting just an hour prior to this today with their community, is the two things we want to try to accomplish this month, and we're looking for people to help us. Number one is to create a Traxa.io white paper. We really need the community to help us. We want to build this community. This includes the tokenomics, the implementation, what kind of tools and resources we're going to use, community managers. How are we going to get funding to help fund this project? We want the whole, my desire is to have the whole community own this project from the get-go. So not some sort of random token launch and then figure out how we're going to incentivize people. We want to incentivize the community from the beginning to basically take pictures of shipping containers and store them on a blockchain so the world's intermodal international trade can actually locate them. Our second goal as a part of participating in the Open Web Foundry this month for the remaining 4 to 5 weeks that we have left here is a secondary goal is we need a CTO. We are actively looking for a technology lead to help us navigate implementation, basically maintaining the technical vision. Ideally, we have a post on our site, and it's on the main section of our site on traxa.io of a link of what we're looking for. Are you a technology leader? Traxa needs a CTO, and that's Chief Technology Officer. And we have some descriptions of what we're trying to do and more details and the challenge and the compensation. The compensation is this individual will be a founder of the community. We are still in the very, very beginning stages. We do not have a prototype, a community prototype yet. The proprietary implementation does exist today and is used across a number of businesses successfully to track their own intermodal containers within their own networks. We want to empower the world's truckers to help secure our global economy. This impacts everyone from the United States to Europe to Africa to Asia. It does not matter what continent you are, what country you're in. There are shipping containers sent to you and around you that get you your goods. And we're trying to help people track that and make the world economy more secure in that way. Thank you so much. Were there any questions?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing. Okay, just one quick lead on your second point there. You should reach out to, just check the name. Yes, JF on the Arweave developer Discord. He was telling me yesterday that he has a team of people. They're just finishing putting together a wallet that they're calling, I think, Arweave.app. So they're very, very, what do you say?
JF, you said?
JF, yeah. Yeah, they're really good Arweave developers, and they're looking for stuff to build. So that could
is that the letter J and then the letter F? I apologize,
yeah,
Sam.
Exactly. No worries. It is a letter J and a letter F. Yeah, okay. We actually have quite a few 2-letter people. Like there's also a JY in the community. DJ Wit, if David is with us, a whole bunch. Anyway, yes. So that's an interesting lead there potentially. On the first point, yeah, the tokenomics makes sense for me. Apart from this question of, well, what is the profit that is being shared? So where does the revenue come from for the community? Makes a lot of sense to reward truckers for their, basically an additional reward for the value they're creating by tracking where these things go. And that can be really powerful. It seems like you could set up an Astatine kind of reward cycles where you're basically minting tokens to reward people that have taken part, and then they mine them by making these reports, and then you have some kind of validation system. That could work really, really well. Question is, where does the value come from for the profit sharing token itself? So who is going to be sort of tipping the revenue into the top? This is a question for after, probably. Anyway,
yes, it's a critical mass point. So we'll have to get to a critical mass point, and my hypothesis on it is the critical mass can occur in any specific region. So if we get a region of the world that is actively using this distributed ledger, and the truckers themselves, I'm confident will find value in being able to identify, even just from a validation, if they're able to search it initially at almost next to nothing to demonstrate the value of it, they'll be able to see a picture of the shipping container in an ideal world that they'd actually need to pick up. And they can make a historical record to use it even for damage analysis of, hey, when I picked it up, it's on the blockchain, it's an immutable picture. It didn't have these issues. Here's proof of that. It was actually physically located at this point. And when they drop it off, even, they drop off that shipping container, they get rewarded again to take another picture for then the next trucker that comes into play to interact with it. It's a pretty exciting challenge and hypothesis that only time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it could be very, very cool. So thank you so much for sharing, Chris. I think last on our run list for today is Richard from Akord, if I'm not mistaken. Richard, do you want to join us on stage?
Right now.
Oh, I've got a black screen.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Uh,
All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you and I can see you, but also the gather town is gone for me. Is everyone else? Okay, it's just me. Never mind. I'll be blind.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you all see my screen, the slides? All right. Well, thanks.
Thank you, Jesse.
Hey, Sam, thanks for having us. And Jess, thanks for organizing and helping us get up to speed. So Akord, I'll give you a quick intro how we got here. So I have an assortment of storage devices. I have iCloud, Dropbox, Google Cloud, hard drives, thumb drives, just a whole bunch of them. And all those storage devices have just an assortment of photos and documents and memoirs and things like that, that I have a problem, which is simply how do I get those files into some packageable way for my grandkids or my great grandkids to see? How do I ensure the digital heritage around my media? And so what Akord's trying to solve is we're trying to help enable families and organizations to preserve their digital heritage for many generations to come. And in addition to families, we also see like different kinds of companies and NGOs and legal trusts and endowments that all have a very similar problem. So the way that we're addressing this is through what we call a social vault. And a social vault is a long-lasting time capsule that you can help self-organize permissions around. So I can invite my family members. I can create some galleries and publish media for them to all enjoy. And then when I pass away, I can allow, like, the social vault will allow them to continue managing the permissions for that vault down the road, so that hopefully many generations later, they will still have, my family would still have access to these original contents, the media. And so I'll give you a quick little overview of what the app does. So here we have the main screen where on the left side, I can create multiple vaults. And right here, it's an example from my co-founder, Pascal. And he's kind of showing where on the right side, he has a family social vault where on the activity tab, the family members can all participate in discussion around the contents in this vault. And everything in this vault is encrypted end to end. And we also do key rotation and things like that to ensure that people who have access for a short amount of time would only have access to things during that time and not after. And in addition to that, so anytime you upload any memoirs or photos or things like that, they all appear on the timeline as activity, and the family members can then respond and reply and interact with those items. And so our privacy layer is what really enables all that, and it's something that we've been working on for a little over a year now. So in addition to the activity, we can organize the assets in the vault, create folders, upload different kinds of media types, sound, video, PDFs and documents and so on. And as we've been working with a blockchain in mind, we actually developed our own crypto ledger, a crypto wallet first approach, end-to-end encryption. We developed all of those in the protocol from the beginning. But in the beginning, we didn't know of a blockchain to start with. We were looking at Storj, and we're looking at Filecoin, IPFS, and we're looking at NuCypher for their great encryption technologies. We're looking at all kinds of different blockchains, but none of them quite addressed the needs that we had at the time. So we just kept working with our own crypto ledger, our own crypto wallet, our own encryption protocols in a centralized form until we discovered Arweave. So what Arweave does is they bring kind of the perfect match for what we were looking for. They bring the permanent storage, and that was the key aspect that we were needing. And as Arweave is the only project that we have seen that really delivers this in a well-designed way, in addition to that, we also found that the smart weave contracts that are implemented match structurally almost identical to our crypto ledger. So the move from taking our crypto ledger transaction set over to the Arweave blockchain is just seamless for us. So we're in the process of moving that over. And some of the work that we're doing right now is to move over the on-ramps so our users can top up, easily just pay with a credit card and we'll provide the storage for them, and to be able to organize all that in the background so that the on-ramp is super easy, super smooth. We can bring on a lot of users onto the platform. In addition to that, we can give each user direct access to their transaction set, as you can see here below. So easily go view the transaction on the Weave, be able to get confirmations and things like that. But in addition to that, we're also providing kind of this hybrid approach for the time being. And what I mean by that is, so while we are still a bit centralized on AWS and we're caching files and we're doing like push notification services and we're doing email delivery and we're doing many of those normal Web 2.0 services on Amazon, our plan is to take it fully decentralized into a profit sharing community, because we really believe that's the approach going forward. So what we've actually done is we've laid out a roadmap of how to do that. The first step is for us to get the data of the application completely onto Arweave, which includes our transaction register as well as the data attachments. The second phase is to then bring over the application. And so the first part of that phase is bringing over what we call the Akord Explorer. So using the existing Akord.com online access point, we can create your galleries. And then using the Explorer, you should be able to then view your galleries on the Weave, directly from the Weave, and have that just really persist over time. And then eventually, we will port over all of the other aspects of the application. And then the third phase is to completely take the business model into a profit sharing community and really leverage tokens and an open model for ensuring that this business will be open and around for many, many generations to come. So our team, we're based here in Paris, France, and myself, I've been working with Bitcoin, blockchain, lots of different technologies in that space, in the crypto space, for over 10 years now. I've started several companies. The last company of mine was called Stratum. And now my co-founder and I, so Pascal was someone I met at Stratum, and he came with me, and we together started Akord. We've been working on this project for about a year now, and together we were very lucky to meet Veronica early on, and she left IBM to come join us as our cryptography expert, excuse me. And so together we've been working on this this project, and we do have a couple other contractors helping us out, not to be named at this time, but one in New York City and one in Poland. And so together, we are now, after the Open Web Foundry, we'll be announcing a marketing campaign to bring on more users onto the system. And we're going to be offering 1,000 megabytes of storage on the Weave for the first 1,000 users. And so anybody who's signed up in Akord now will automatically receive that when we finish and launch in September. And we hope that that will help bootstrap Akord into the Arweave community, into the space, and build a strong symbiotic relationship with the community. So I want to just mention a couple more things. So there's a couple of aspects I'd like to mention in terms of our roadmap to getting to become a fully Web 3.0 application on the Weave. And there are two distinct services that we feel would be very advantageous to not only our project, to many other projects. So coming from the Ethereum space, there was one project in particular that I've been looking into and made some token investments in, which was called the Ethereum Push Notification Service. And this is a system where it is decentralized, where decentralized relays listen to on-chain transactions real time and allow clients to make subscriptions to those transaction sets. So if I have a mobile phone, I can say, okay, anytime this account has a transaction, please notify me. And there's like a GraphQL kind of subscription that you can make. And anytime something on-chain happens within that event or within that account, a push notification is sent to the device. That would be greatly advantageous for Akord because we have a kind of an interactive, collaborative platform. And whenever somebody posts to the Arweave blockchain, we would like to have a notification sent out to all of the users who may be online at the same time. So to create a very responsive, interactive experience. The second project that we could really use is, again, coming from the Ethereum ecosystem, there's a project called The Graph, literally The Graph. And The Graph is it's another decentralized service that allows developers to build and deploy subgraphs that cache on-chain data. So for example, if I wanted to create a subgraph of the CryptoPunks transaction set, I could deploy a subgraph on the network, and anybody who needs that data and information can query the subgraph and get information real time about the CryptoPunks collectibles. And so bringing this over into the Arweave ecosystem would be very advantageous for us, because then we can query the subgraph as sort of a cache and have a very highly responsive experience for our users, right? And not necessarily have to go query the Arweave blockchain directly. So just kind of increasing performance and things like that. So those are two aspects of the infrastructure that we could really use. I would be very happy to speak with people out there who are interested in building. I could share some ideas and just want to help however we can. We're both at Akord. We're both very thrilled and very excited to have and feel very lucky to have met this community. It's just been a wonderful experience for us, and we hope to contribute as best as we can. So if you're interested, please sign up at Akord.com. You can find all the links there, or check us out on Twitter at Akord Team. Thank you, guys.
Wow, amazing. Okay. So there's so much to say. Starting from the last part first. Starting with the graph. Yeah. This is something we I've been speaking to a few people from the graph for a while. I guess it's a question of where we are in the queue to getting integrated. At the same time, Amplify, the gateway network, is also looking at sort of so taking it's not really a subgraph, it's not a fair way to describe it, but like I guess subsets of the weave, and having you be able to spin out micro amplifies that would still be decentralized. Basically, you could put up some Amplify tokens to begin with, but then eventually some Akord tokens, and people can come along and mine them out for providing these gateway-like services. So including serving data, but also that kind of subgraph, if you will, fast access to indexes of the network. So those things could be helpful. In terms of the Ethereum push notification service, absolutely, we will fund this. Please, if anyone in the audience found that kind of interesting, yes, everybody in the network needs this desperately. Please, someone pick it up and do it, and we will be your first capital in, definitely. And I think a lot of other projects now actually would also co-fund this with us, just because it's such an obvious thing that we all need in order for the ecosystem to grow. And other than that, I was just amazed by the application, particularly.
Thank you.
Yeah, two things really stuck out: seeing the idea that you could have messaging basically between different family members over long periods of time, seeing what they kind of that's incredible. I really hadn't. Jesse's told me a little bit about your project before, and I've kind of checked out parts, but I'd never really seen, noticed the power of that. That's super cool. And then seeing last will and testimony stored in one of these vaults. It's actually, I've been storing my will on the Arweave for like 3 years now, but there's no good way of doing it. This is so powerful if you can just like store it in an open, permanent, and safe ledger, and then change who has access to it over time. That would just be like the optimal solution to the problem. Wow, super cool. Thank you so much for sharing, and to everyone that shared today. This is an incredible session. I'm super excited to chat to you all just outside. So let's go there. Thanks everyone. See you there.
Thank you.